the podium.
Well, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Can folks hear me okay? Okay. All right. So, hey, my name is Todd Schechter. I serve as Chief Technology Officer for UW-Madison, and thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I'm joined by a number of colleagues, leaders in research computing around UW-Madison, and we're going to have just a fun panel discussion this afternoon about the RISE initiative. And for those who might be new to UW-Madison who are visiting us, RISE stands for Research, Innovation, and Scholarly Excellence. RISE is an initiative that our Chancellor, Chancellor Mnuchin, launched in 2024. And its purpose was really to tackle complex societal challenges. And some of the ideas behind RISE is that we're going to do this through adding to the faculty that we have at UW-Madison in quite a big way. Over the next 3 to 5 years, adding 240 faculty members to our campus. That's a big number. When you think about faculty members, these are research faculty, and so it's the individual faculty member plus their graduate students, easily 1,000 new people to our campus. Another of the goals of RISE is to collaborate across schools and colleges. So I'll talk a little bit about the initiatives that make up RISE, but each of these had to be thought about by different academic deans. It couldn't just be one dean, it had to be multiple deans. The deans had to come together, they had to have a vision, they had to sell that vision, and then the chancellor and provost kind of agreed with that vision. But really kind of interdisciplinary collaboration has been a key tenet of RISE so far. Another part of RISE is expanding educational opportunities. When you think about the new faculty members that are coming in, new ways of teaching, something that the 5 of us or the 6 of us have talked about is how research computing can extend to teaching and learning. And you'll hear some of the things that have been developed so far out of RISE that are really focused on helping to extend research computing to teaching and learning. And then the other thing that we've done is, and part of this initiative is to really enhance the research computing infrastructure that is available across the campus. We're very lucky to have the ability and the resources to add 20 new research computing professionals across the university. Some of those people have joined us in the room today or are joining us virtually, thinking about scaling the operations that we have, thinking about the resources and the capabilities that are necessary to help advance this interdisciplinary collaboration. So far as part of RISE, there have been 3 initiatives that have been launched. The first is RISE AI for artificial intelligence, really thinking about not only foundational AI, but also AI as applied in schools and colleges across the university. So it's been fun to see some of the faculty members that have joined us thinking about AI in the nursing school, in the business school, in engineering, even in the School of Dance, places where maybe we wouldn't think that AI would come out, but it's definitely there. The second is RISE Earth, thinking about sustainability, thinking about climate resilience, and all of the things that are associated there. And then the third is RISE Thrive, thinking about health span, immunology, and improving human well-being, not only here at UW-Madison, but also globally. And so it's a pleasure today to be joined by these leaders here representing the School of Medicine and Public Health, representing the Center for High Throughput Computing, the Research Cyber Infrastructure Group within the Division of Information Technology, the Data Science Institute, and the Data Science Hub. Together, we're going to learn about some of the initiatives that each of these groups are doing in service of research across the university. And I want to emphasize that service part. The work that we are doing is in service of faculty members, it's in service of graduate students, and it's in service of the research mission of the university. So with that, I'd like to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves, and we'll begin with Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stevens, pronoun she, her, hers, and I'm the director of the Data Science Hub. We help researchers across campus learn and apply data science and research software engineering in their work through things like workshops, consultations, and other community activities.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle Kramer. I'm the director for the Data Science Institute, also a professor of physics, computer science, and statistics, and recently took on the role of leading the RISE AI headquarters. The Data Science Institute's a campus-wide institute under the Vice Chancellor for Research, and we have a growing professional staff that are trying to help, do that service in terms of actually working with researchers and doing research. And we also have a large network of affiliated faculty and staff from really all across the university that helps us with kind of engaging campus and doing what we do. Thanks.
I'm Jan Cheatham, Director of the Research Cyber Infrastructure Group that's in DeWitt, the Division of Information Technology. And we're a group that provides some services, so things like storage. We have some tools for data management, data science. We help researchers use cloud computing, and we do a lot of training and support of researchers, helping out with machine learning and AI interests of the researchers. And I'll just sort of say we do this in collaboration with partners in DeWitt, Systems Engineering and Operations Group. I see a lot of you here. Thanks for all you do to work with us.
Thank you, Jen.
So I'm Brian Bockelman. I work in the Center for High Throughput Computing. It's a bit of a unique or a bit of an oddity on campus. It's a research group in the Computer Sciences Department and let's see if I get it right, College of AI and Computing as of last week. And to do our research or CS research, instead of kind of doing the traditional publish a paper, build a prototype, publish a paper, throw it all away, start again type pattern, we believe in translational computer science. So we're interested in taking our ideas, building them out into services and building a community. So to provide services to build the community on campus, what we do is for open science, we work to provide things like cluster computing environments, automation, workflow scaling, things like this. So we do a lot of things that look like maybe a typical, say, HPC shop on campus, but we come from it from a research point of view.
He passes the microphone.
I'm Mike Collins. I'm the School of Medicine and Public Health, the Informatics and IT organization. We developed a cloud-based platform for computing research called Platform X. It's built in Azure, so it has all of the access to all of the Azure services. We deploy virtual machines in there, but we also access OpenAI and all the models that are deployed through that, as well as giving people GPUs, computing to be able to do computing on a VM with restricted data, in particular PHI. We also have Platform R, which is our on-premise high-performance computing cluster. It's similar to some of the services that Brian's team provides, but again, when you're working with PHI in particular. We also have a data services team. So we have collaborations and data sharing agreements with UW Health and more recently Meritor. So we're able to get access to the data within those health systems and bring those in and provide them access to the researchers who are interested in working with medical data. And then we also have honest brokers who can validate de-identified data. So if you wanted to take it, share that data externally or make it shareable for you along with your research, they can also help work with you to de-identify those data.
Great, thank you, Mike. So we've kind of got a few different sections of the questions that we'll pose to our panelists today. The first section is leadership and vision. The second is around innovation and new projects. The third is communication and collaboration. The fourth is around funding and sustainability. And then the fifth is around prioritization and resource management. And kind of selected these topics. They seem timely for not only research computing topics, but also other things that we're doing around the university. And so I'm going to ask one of our panelists to kind of provide a first answer, and then we'll see if others would like to share perspective on the specific question. So we'll see how far we get in the next hour, but again, just thank you for everyone joining us, and this should be a great conversation. So the first section, again, leadership and vision, and we're going to ask, Jan is going to help us out with his first question, but so Jan, when you think about leading a research computing group, what does that mean to you, and how has that kind of evolved and changed over time?
Yeah, so a research computing group, I think, is a group that provides resources and support to researchers for their data and computation intensive work. Traditionally, it's kind of involved computing clusters, storage arrays, software, but also the people who work with the researchers and support them. So I think that's probably something we all have in common. I think one thing that I find is sort of unique at this campus is that even though we're fairly distributed, I feel like being a leader of one of the sort of nodes in the network of research computing support kind of means that I help with some of the strategy of our campus, help with decision making, making sure that we have the right things, because research moves really fast. There are always new things coming up, always decisions that need to be made. And it just feels really comfortable for me, I think, where we are right now as a campus, making decisions, deciding on strategy together. So the ways I would say it's evolved over time is we sure have a lot of things coming at us. There's a lot of new things. So AI, of course, and machine learning have been around for a while, potentially, but maybe sort of in pockets where I feel like we're all sort of addressing it in one way or another. I think other things like the public cloud computing is sort of something that researchers have started using, that we're providing support for. In my area, there are always new compliance areas that we're addressing. So we don't, on this campus, we don't have our research computing all in one place. There are some peer institutions where it's kind of like that. And so it takes a lot of collaboration, I think, across our groups to make sure we're not duplicating. And I would say not duplicating, that we're making the campus investments go as far as possible. I feel like that's going really, really well. So I would say like leading in research computing means sort of being part of a coalition of folks.
Thank you, Jen. Would anyone else care to share perspective on that question?
Brian Bockelman.
So I can only share my perspective and maybe not say how research computing's changed, but how I've changed is, one of the big realizations is research computing has, to first order, nothing to do with computing. I'm really glad that we sat after that last presentation. Research computing is about building relationships and partnering with researchers to get their problem solved. Yeah, at the end of the day, there's a computer plugged in creating waste heat somewhere, but that is
A lot of ways, maybe a lot of
yeah. The greenhouses need to get warm somehow. But for me, really, what I've learned over the years is all these technological trends change, the approaches change, and those are so far second order, third order compared to building relationships, collaborating, and working with the researchers on their priorities. And one of the things, kind of talking about peer institutions, sometimes I've seen research computing shops really struggle when they're located in the IT organization, because a lot of times the priorities, what makes things work, what makes things go, are a little more aligned with what we call kind of like the VCR here at UW-Madison. And so, but on the other hand, there's that word computing in there as well. So trying to figure out where that balance is between kind of the IT type activities and the priorities of the researcher are one of the real big challenges of the.
Anyone else to care to comment on that one? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. So next question, and Mike is going to start us off on this one. How do you balance setting a long-term vision with responding to the immediate needs of faculty in emerging technologies?
Yeah, so I think it goes back again to the collaboration, right, with the researchers. I spend a lot of time talking to them about what their problems are, and I'm trying to see the patterns in what they're asking for and what they're looking for to help us set a long-term vision for where we're the services that we're planning to provide, the things that are the gaps with the services that we offer. And so sometimes that means we have to respond and find. I enjoy working most with the researchers who are willing to to collaborate with us, right, and find us halfway. Because I think typical examples of this is with AI, right? They want to use all of the tools, and we haven't cybersecurity reviewed them all, and they don't want to wait 18 months for those cybersecurity review to be completed or however long it takes. But how can we allow them to use it in a way that's safe, right? So we're protecting the patient's information, and so working with them, looking at the tools, giving them guidance on how to use them appropriately until we can get through the appropriate reviews, or again, trying to find a way that we can deliver the service that we hope to deliver more, in a more scalable way in a short term, with a short-term solution that's at least a step towards where we're trying to get to both ways. And so I think, again, to the extent you're understanding their problem and you're spending the time learning about their problems, that goes a long way. And I think then we work together to try to build out what that vision looks like and help work with them to prioritize what they want to see long term.
Yeah, I think it's neat too, because like being IT, like we're kind of in everyone's business. Like we're working with them. We're hearing their stories. We're hearing their needs, and our ability to connect people and to create those collaborations is something that's kind of unique, I think.
I always like to say our lead facilitator, Christina Cook, is the most popular person on campus because she just has to meet with such a wide variety of folks. One thing I really want to see succeed is some of the things that the DSI is doing in terms of trying to find different ways to pair up researchers across campus. I don't feel that we're a particularly siloed campus and that there's walls or impediments to collaboration, but we are a distributed campus where it can just take a lot of energy to find each other, right? I mean, UW-Madison is so huge and so broad that even without stumbling blocks or somebody saying no, connecting with the right person, it just takes a lot of energy from both sides. So I really like some of the stuff that DSI is trying in terms of trying to find who's doing similar research or who's doing complementary stuff, or can we use various AI things to find these connections that might be surprising. I know those are all new initiatives and it'll take a couple of years to understand the impact, but in terms of bootstrapping collaboration, I think some of those new ideas are what's needed. University structure is actually not, departments and colleges are not good structures for flat cross collaborations.
One of the things that we've done that's been most successful in cross-discipline collaboration is the Research Bazaar we host. It's a big conference, and I think has been key to kind of bringing in people across different domains is that we put those people on the planning committee. We try and get a really cross-cutting of campus, a bunch of different domains. It's like we need to have people from the medical school represented. We need to have people from life sciences, engineering, all of those. And I think that's really helped us create a community around that event that has all those people coming together to share and learn from each other. Even they may be applying machine learning in different ways across their various disciplines, but they still have ability to learn from one another when they talk about it and come together to talk about that piece of their work.
Thank you, Sarah. Did you want to add something, Mike? Or?
No, I'm sure. I don't know how relevant it is. That was one of the first times I saw the little 5-minute flash talks, and I love those now. Those are my favorite thing. Maybe that's just how my brain works. I don't need to see a half-an-hour presentation on something. I just want to see, I want to see as many things as possible, because then I find the people I want to go talk to. Right, that's the person who's got an idea that's similar to mine, and I want to go learn more about it. And I can target those people easier rather than I go to a conference and I may only see 5 presentations, and this way I can see 20 in an hour.
We schedule those really intentionally. We don't put people who are talking about similar topics in a row. We've had people give us feedback. They're like, I wish I could only go to the biology flash talks. And I was like, no, I want you to be here through all of them, because you're going to learn something interesting about different research when you make those connections. And we always have a half hour of discussion after every lightning talk round. So each of the presenters gets assigned a table and people can follow up with them and talk to them. And so they're really scheduled to inspire collaboration.
All right, so I think with that, we'll move on to our next section, which is funding and sustainability. Brian's going to start us off with his first question. So Brian, as you think about different approaches that have worked best for securing funding for research computing initiatives, how does that work for you? And kind of what are some of the challenges with securing funding for different initiatives?
So talk about a ugly topic on universities this year. Um, it it's I mean, I was talking to somebody yesterday who kind of made the assertion, which might be an exaggeration, but I mostly believe it, that we live on a campus that if somebody sees a dollar that they could take away from academic staff and use it for new faculty lines, the answer will always be new faculty, right? And it is somebody who's not a tenured faculty. I kind of, it's one of those, I feel seen, right? So, you know, why is that? Or, you know, why do faculty, or why do we have kind of that gut instinct to push it all that direction? Because if you sit and talk to faculty and say, look at all the wonderful things that are needed to get research done, they can kind of rationally understand that. But you know, I see the same thing when I'm writing my proposals. We're about 70% grant funded. You know, when I see the big number that I have to put in my budget, and then the take home number for a grad student, those are very different numbers. So, you know, when I view from that direction, you know, I go, oh, why do we have overhead? Why is that, you know, what is this indirect I have to pay? You know, isn't this all just administration and HR and bureaucracy and regulations? And why do I have to pay any of that? So I kind of see both sides of the coin, where it's easy to get in that negative space where what is all this stuff going to? So when I'm on the other end, when I'm saying, you know, we can build wonderful infrastructure on this campus, you know, I think the best I could do is just try to be mindful that a lot of times this is somebody's grant money. This is somebody's tax dollars. This is somebody's tuition dollars, and kind of saying, you know, if this was my tuition dollar, you know, would I be happy about what we're doing? And can we come up with a way that we can tie our activities back to the mission of the university, whether it's the research mission, whether it's the extension mission or education, trying to be mindful of that. And the other thing I try to think about is, you know, for every GPU we buy, that means that many fewer cryo-EM microscopes, that many fewer things, and try to say, can I at least justify this to myself? And I mean, luckily, I think what we do in computing does really have great justification. It really does have large impacts. You know, one of the real pleasures of this area is, you know, the number of departments or number of researchers who can use this common shared infrastructure, right? We you know, there's hard to pick out anything else on campus where $1 put in research computing can benefit such a broad intersection of folks. I think we do bring great value, but at least when I'm on the recipient of some of the funding initiatives and not the one putting in the indirect or the overhead, I try to think and be mindful of that, and kind of still try to build out wonderful things.
Anyone else like to share a perspective on that?
I wasn't going to, but I just I mean, it's an important, but you know, sometimes a depressing topic. I can a lot more examples of what doesn't work, but then, no, but I mean, I was the thing that popped in mind that sounds kind of cynical or like a joke, but is actually kind of true, is essentially like shots on goal. Like, you know, one of the best ways to get more research funding is to try more, and so, but to do that, it's a lot of effort, right? So I think, you know, Brian was talking about these efforts to try to bring people together and form teams. I mean, that's essentially part of what we're trying to do. And oftentimes there's not very much time to respond. There will be an opportunity, and you can't spend like forever like trying to build up a team from scratch. Or I mean, you can, but it's just a lot of work. So, you know, how can we streamline that? How can we be more nimble? You know, how can we see opportunities and go for them and see a broader set of opportunities? And I think part of that is also thinking about maybe more atomically, like at the level of like not atoms, but like small units. Like here's like maybe you try to pull together a big group of people to go after a big proposal, but when you break it down into like individual pairs of people that want to work together, if we have kind of like a list of those things in our minds, then when we see an opportunity, it's a lot easier to kind of assemble the ingredients and go after something. And so yeah, so that's like ties into all the relationship building and et cetera, but essentially being nimble and ready to try as many times as possible without exhausting ourselves, because it's a lot of work, and when it's not successful, it's like, do that a few times and then
Yeah.
everyone just like I quit, so
Yeah. Maybe
Or I was just gonna build on that a little. I think one of the upsides or one of the surprises from all the challenges of the research landscape this year is seeing people get creative energy on different ways to move the ball forward, right? And saying, okay, if federal research dollars are getting increasingly tough, what are the other ways can we do science? Can we partner with industry and private foundations and so I've been really pleasantly surprised where it kind of people have fairly successful molds or approaches that they've developed and honed over 10 or 20 years, and to say, okay, what are other ways we can get our work done? How else can we show impact to the state of Wisconsin and
and beyond.
and beyond? Yeah. So I've really liked the different ways that people have been trying to remix or take different approaches or shots on goal.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. So next question we have is around sustainability, and Jan's gonna start us off with this one. So, Jan, how do you make the case for sustained investment in research computing infrastructure and the people behind the infrastructure?
Yeah, so I am going to start it off because in my world, the funding is central funding from campus. So it's not like we don't seek funding from external funders. So I think making the case, of course, always involves showing return on investment as best you can. So things like metrics, showing utilization of services. Not all metrics are quantitative. So I think stories, where we help move the needle, for example, with a particular research group or a group of researchers with sort of a similar challenge. I think that can be very helpful. But we're always looking for new ways to measure adoption and usage. I think you have to sort of be continuously listening to your researchers, to be hearing things that are coming up. I would say in IT, we're not always as agile, perhaps, as some of the other research computing groups, and so kind of keeping the course steady. I think offering reliable, available services is a big part of what we do, and that's kind of sort of slow and steady work, but where we can, really hearing what the researchers are needing, where the arising gaps are, where I mentioned before, sort of paying attention to compliance areas as they come up is definitely a place where we can help. I think though we're in an era, not sort of paralleling what's happening at the national level, where there are kind of competing priorities on campus. And so how you even decide what is most impactful, what is the thing to make the case for sustained funding, I think is, it's a little bit harder right now.
Yeah. Anyone else care to comment on that?
Maybe it's somewhat a side topic, but one of my favorite topics is metrics. And again, on the universities are strange places. Companies, usually define their metrics as profit, and people have some generally accepted way of measuring profit. One interesting thing about universities is we have no agreed upon way to measure research. So it becomes very difficult for us to kind of unite or align all in one direction, because we can't, we haven't figured out any way of saying we did 12% better research last year than we did this year. It's kind of a bizarre place to be, that we maybe say, oh, I know it when we see it, or something like that, but it makes it kind of places where with research computing, where maybe we're helping enable people to do research, really tough to figure out what to prioritize or how to prioritize, where we can't say, we did this new initiative last year, did it make research better? I don't know how to answer that question. It's
I'm
tough.
curious, Mike, do you have any thoughts on that? Like from the medical breakthroughs and the radiology things and so many of the applied medical areas?
No, I was just sitting here thinking how bad we are at sharing the stories or telling what we've done. I think we're so focused on just solving the next problem and trying to do that. And prioritization is impossible, is nearly impossible, right? Because it's not always based on who's got the best research, but who's got the loudest voice. And so, I think we could do, but I think it would be good for us as the people who provide the computing to be able to see how we've made an impact on that research, right? And so it would be nice, I sometimes won't see it because I happen to go to a presentation where they're talking about how they've used our technology, but I don't think that we do a good job of communicating the rest of the teams who that support that research, and so the more another metric is just satisfaction of our employees and staff. And I think we do good work. I think we always hear about the things that aren't going well, or like, why is my stuff not done sooner, or why is it not prioritized first? But we, at the same time, we deliver a lot of good things that enable a lot of great research that goes on here. It's why I'm here. I love the fact that I wake up every day and I'm contributing to supporting the great research that happens at this university.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Carl, do you want to share a thought on that?
I mean, I guess the thing that came to mind the most is that, one of the initiatives that actually Sarah and I are both working on is the creation of an open source program office
right.
on campus. And basically the idea is like, we think it's important, so much of our research output is in the form of open source software. Some of our capability to do teaching, learning, research is based on the ability to use open source software. Academia contributes to it, and so it's not really recognized in any clear way. There's very little money going into supporting it, and it seems like something to be addressed. And so we want to do something there. We got some funding from the Sloan Foundation, but that was just a 2-year award, and our goal was to create an office that will persist. Luckily, we got another 2 years, but it's gonna run out. But from the beginning of putting that proposal together, it was this what is the sustainability model? And kind of to Brian's point earlier about being really innovative about where do you seek support and how do you frame it? We are trying to, what's the connection with the libraries? What's the connection with IT? What's the connection with the entrepreneurship initiatives on campus? What's the connection to research? What's the connection to, outreach? We have a partnership with Madison College, and now we were getting some funds from, corporate sponsors, and how does that connect to talent in the new college? And it's kind of fun because you get to be creative and you get to think about all these connectors. It takes a lot of mental, energy to try to think through it. But I'll just contrast that a little bit with, I do think that there are sometimes parts of campus that have been funded centrally for a long time, where it's kind of like, we know that we're providing a valuable service, but you start to kind of rest on your laurels maybe. And it's like, you don't want, there are other groups, and I'm not talking about Do It on campus, but they're the ones that I'm thinking of that are doing something that I think are valuable. They think it's valuable. They used to be centrally funded. That funding is going away, and they're not necessarily thinking about how do we reinvent ourselves. It's kind of just like a little bit of a, privileged version of this should be paid for.
Yeah.
And you kind of can't get, well, you can, but it's not going to work out for you to get stuck in that. So I think that the open source program office gives a lot of inspiration for how you can think creatively, but it also, takes a lot of effort. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Jan, do you want to share a thought on that one?
I just had one more thought. You talking about the open source office made me think, one example of something that's turned out to be really sustained very well was research data services. That was sort of a collaboration, I think, between units, libraries, central IT, that started back in 2011 and still going strong. And I think the ingredient is not so much sustained funding, because it really runs on a shoestring, but I think it's a shared interest among different groups on campus. It started out as sort of a new area, I think, for all of us, and the libraries were sort of looking at data science, and it was kind of a development, I think, for a lot of librarians to participate in it. So once in a while, sort of a cause comes along that really rallies people, and it just sort of self-sustains, I think, because it's it sort of fits into people's jobs already. So sort of hoping to discover something else like that.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. All right, hey, so this hour has gone by really quickly. As we close this panel today, I asked each of our panelists to share with us one piece of advice that they'd like to offer to others working in research computing. Only one. And we'll start with Mike. You want to go last?
Let me go last.
Okay, we'll start with Sarah.
Kyle grabs the microphone.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with asking for your seat at the table is my piece of advice. It's more leadership advice than specific to research computing, but the reason I'm on this panel right now is because I thought that what the perspective the Data Science Hub provided was going to be useful as this RISE initiative came about, and I kept asking and trying to find the right person to get us on that committee, and that's why I'm here. That's why we got funding through RISE, and I really appreciate that. But it did take asking and sometimes getting told no about different things, and I keep asking then to be a part of the conversation, to make sure that the perspective we're providing and how we're helping researchers is also being considered when decisions are being made.
Thanks, Sarah. Kyle, you want to go next?
Oof. Maybe just trying to really believe in the shared purpose of the university as a whole, and not necessarily like whatever unit or something like that. I think
Kyle passes the microphone.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, and sort of related to those ideas, I would say be collaborative. I think everyone really is, but I would say research computing is no different. It really helps to be looking for ways to kind of broaden your impact, to get ideas from other groups. And, you know, we talked a lot about collaborating with researchers and building collaborations amongst them. And so I think that's always something to pay attention to, is providing resources to researchers that help them collaborate.
Thanks, Jen. Brian?
So I'd say the highlight of my week for any given week is talking to researchers. So if you get the chance, talk to the researcher, understand what they're doing, what problem they're trying to solve, and particularly the best input or discussion I get from researchers is, how am I failing to help solve your problem? You know, don't tell me what's great about our services, but what can we work on? What can we do better? So go hug a researcher every week.
Thanks, Brian. Mike, you want to close this out?
Sure. And now, see, now by going last, they've also taken the ideas I had. But go talk to people, right? I mean, I think with the intent to learn and the intent to educate others, like share what you know, right? And be willing to share that, and be willing to learn from others. I mean, like that is not specific to research computing, but just things in general. And thank you all for being here, because this is learning and sharing.
Yeah. So, folks, if you could please join me in thanking our panelists today. This has been a great hour.
They applaud.